Well, good morning. Thank you for welcoming me into your home or your car, your coffee shop, wherever you are this morning. I'm sitting in my writing nook. So, in the corner of our den here, I've got windows that you can't see that I can look out and see the backyard and everything. And it's just a great, comfortable space for me to do a lot of work. Well, God is good all the time. All the time. God is good. New Year's Eve this year, I started to feel a little bit worn down. And I just thought it had been a long week. Jacob and I had traveled to Kentucky one day for work. Just had a lot going on. I just really felt kind of wore out. Well, New Year's Day, my wise and witty and intelligent wife said, maybe we should test you for COVID. Of course, I scoffed at that idea, invincible as I am, right? So we did the test and it came out positive. So we used the test from another company because I'm thinking, and it came out positive as well. See, I don't post much on Facebook about stuff like that, personal problems. I'd much rather post an adorable picture of Harper or some amazing masterpiece that came fresh off of the grill. But I do want to take this opportunity to talk to you this morning about what I'm calling the gift of COVID. And I know how you could be asking, how could anyone refer to such an illness as a gift? An illness that has taken so much from so many, right? It's kind of like COVID has drained the oxygen out of the room, or at least when you say the gift of COVID. So much loss of life, obviously a detriment to the economy, right? There's no area of life that hasn't been affected. I know people who have passed. I know you do too. I know people who have struggled under ventilators. I know that you do too. So the global economy, families have been robbed of loved ones, divisiveness about the very topic. You try to have this discussion about COVID, vaccines, protocol, masks, everything, and there are people that are so polarized. It's such a lightning rod topic. So how could I say the gift of COVID? I know it sounds very counterintuitive. And so I promise you, I am being neither callous nor crass when I use the phrase, the gift of COVID. You see, I'm not saying that COVID itself is a gift or the loss of life or the disruption to our entire world, right? Because the phrase is, when will we get back to normal? Many people have been traumatized by this illness, the death, the lingering illness. But while those things are not good at all, common sense would tell us that, I am saying from firsthand experience, having COVID right now, even in the midst of the misery, and I have been suffering, to say the least. I want you to know I recognize there are some beneficial, some very powerful gifts from having COVID for which I'm grateful. So put your seatbelt on, buckle in, and get ready. All right? What do I mean by the gift of COVID? Well, for example, I can't think of anything more valuable or productive for a person than a personal time of reflection. To take a real assessment of who you are, what makes you tick, what are your real priorities, what gives you purpose, what really matters in life, how busy we get with our everyday life. But when COVID hits you and you cannot get out of your bed, I promise you, it might be the first time in many years, but you will take stock of yourself, of what's important to you, of what you love, of who you love, of why you love it. The old King James rendering of Proverbs 23:7, as a man thinks, so he is, cannot be any truer than when you're laying flat on your back. I'm telling you what, this COVID, there are days where all I can do is sleep. It has just knocked me flat down. And there's just no way around it, man. When you're laying there, you're going to start to think. And you're going to think about what's important. You're going to think about yourself. And I'll tell you something I discovered in about the first 30 minutes of COVID that I did not like about myself. I thought to myself, well, now that I have COVID, I'll find out who my real friends are, right? Who's going to check on me? Who's going to call? Who's going to see what I need? And I thought about that. And in about 15 seconds, I realized I don't live up to my own standards. I like to think of myself as a pretty good friend. And I realized, you know what? I can't judge people how they respond or treat or express their concern to me. So when I realized I didn't measure up to my own standards, I felt pretty petty. And so I decided, instead of being petty, I'm going to choose to be grateful. And so one of the gifts, I've already mentioned introspection. The corollary of that is realizing that we can all be petty. One of the gifts of COVID is that you do realize you are cared for. Now, I've had people who have texted me every day, pretty much faithfully. I've had people who have texted me every so many days. I've had Facebook messages, phone calls, and I've had people who haven't reached out at all, and that's okay. One of the gifts of COVID is realizing that you do have community, and that is a wonderful gift. My community stretches beyond just family and just church because of working in concrete. I'm around a lot more people than I ever was in just traditional ministry. So my community is an expansive one, but I realized that people care about us, and that feels good. And your community might not be as large as you want it to be, but you will find that people genuinely do care about you. And in all the hustle and bustle of life, we don't take time to express our care and our concern, and it's easy to forget about it. But there is a gift that comes during a time like this of actually knowing that people do love you and do care about you. Well, another gift of COVID, being sick, laying on my bed, helped me realize our limitations. And it's also helped me to realize there's so much that's outside of our control. No matter what you do, we all like to fantasize about how invulnerable we are. But the truth is, life is fragile. We could do all the right things. I'm not vaccinated, but I also know that people who have been vaccinated and boosted and have been updated, they've still caught COVID. Bottom line, we as humans are vulnerable. And life is fragile, and we're not as invulnerable as we like to pretend that we are. Unfortunately, COVID is one more reminder. You know what? We haven't cured cancer. We haven't cured childhood diabetes. We haven't fixed world hunger yet. There's a whole host of maladies that threaten our life, and COVID is a humbling experience, and I find that as a gift, and I'll tell you why. One of the worst sins, one of the most despicable sins, one of the most often sins in Scripture is pride. And if we're not careful, we'll become prideful, and I think pride is what led to Satan's fall. I think pride is what's devastated a lot of great biblical characters. And you can look around at politicians and powerful people that you've known where pride goes to their head and it totally corrupts them and corrodes their character. So COVID is a gift in the sense that it helps us be a little bit more humble about who we are, what our capabilities are, and our strengths and our vulnerabilities. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 2 says, "When pride comes, then comes disgrace. But with the humble is wisdom. James chapter 4, verse 6, talking about God, it says, but God gives more grace. Therefore it said, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. So I say today that COVID is one of the greatest antidotes to pride. It's a huge reminder just of how vulnerable we are. And no matter sometimes how well protected or how purposeful we are in being cautious, and if you know me, you know I'm a germaphobe, we can still be exposed, we could still become ill, and we can do nothing about it. So a great corollary to that idea that COVID has reminded us to be humble, a great corollary is COVID globally, everywhere, has helped us focus more on our health, on being healthier. You know, we're a pretty unhealthy society. There's a lot, too much obesity, too much smoking, too much poor diet habits, sleep habits, lots of inactivity, lots of lack of exercise. As a culture, as a society, we are ripe for disease. And I think that COVID has been a powerful example of, hey, everybody, let's focus on our health. If you notice on the news, people that are more vulnerable or at least who are more at risk from COVID are people with, high blood pressure, obesity, such things as that. So it's a great reminder for all of us, it's still the New Year's season, right? We're just a couple of weeks into the year and people have New Year's resolutions, right? Let's be healthier. A corollary to the idea of thinking about our health is, thankfully, because of COVID, more people now than ever are thinking about their mortality, right? Life is short. We're all dying in one sense or another, right? I mean, none of us live forever. I read a piece about a woman in Italy. I think she lived to be 119 years old, right? She just recently passed away, and her first husband died right after World War I. I'm thinking, what? World War I, right? Do you know what her diet was? I know this has nothing to do with COVID. She ate 3 eggs a day, right, for 100 years. She was anemic, and the doctor said, eat 2 raw eggs for breakfast and cook an omelet for lunch. And she lived to be 119, okay? Not many people are going to live into their hundreds, but life is short. And I'm grateful that COVID has reminded the entire world that we are mere mortals and to face our mortality head on. And what I hope for the church is, as we think about the brevity of life and how short our life is, I'm hoping for many of us, it will trigger a deeper sense of responsibility for evangelism. It'll help us reach out more because so many people are now so much more aware of the brevity of life. Well, on a more serious note, you're saying, well, what could be more serious than death, Craig? On a more serious note, something that I reflected upon while being sick with COVID is what I think is my greatest failing, my worst failure part as being a believer. And I think a lot of us struggle to honor the idea of a Sabbath rest, but I feel like I do more so. It's just, I think it's my greatest failing. I'm not a perfect person, but here's where I really blow it the worst. But COVID has been hammering me. It's been draining me. It has wiped me out. I promise you, when I'm done preaching this morning, I'll probably eat something and I'm going to go to sleep for about 3 or 4 hours. This has been my life, right? Get up, eat, go back to sleep. But I've been hammered. And so it's forcing me to do the right thing, which is to rest. And I don't do good at that. For more years than I'd like to count, I've been going 7 days a week between preaching, counseling people in the community, writing for the newspaper, pumping concrete, all of the activities I have. I literally work 7 days a week, and spiritually that's not healthy because that means I'm not trusting God. I'm not being obedient to God. He has a principle of a Sabbath rest. It's established in the very days of creation, right? On the seventh day, what? God rested. When God releases the Israelites from Egyptian captivity, and he gives the Ten Commandments, a day of rest. And I blow it there big time, and maybe that's the price I'm paying now. We've had our pumping business 5 or 6 years now. For the first time in the history of our business, I've reached out to customers and postponed jobs. We've lost some jobs just because I had COVID and I'm sick, and so they had to find someone else to pump. But that's okay. But I would have never done that before. There have been a couple of times where I've gone out and I was so sick, I just sat on a bucket, and Jacob and Clay ran all the hoses. I just ran the remote, So this is something new for me, to be so sick I couldn't work. I've always gone out, no matter how sick I was. I've had double sinus infections. I've had ear infections. I've had the flu, and I've still gone out to work concrete. But I'm realizing that trust and obedience are more important than pumping concrete or the rewards of it. So I know going forward, I've got to do better. I've got to make some lifestyle changes. So for me, COVID has been a wake-up call. It just helped me realize just how poorly I do at honoring the Sabbath, and that idea of just, trusting God, right? We work too hard because we feel like, there's a scarcity of abundance or wealth or whatever you want to call it. And it's just really, it's a poor reflection of not trusting God to take care of us no matter what. So I feel bad about that, and I'll confess it to you now, and I'm going to try to do better. Let me tell you, though, about a real crisis I had this week. And I know you're going to laugh at me, but the gift of COVID. Okay, so the last several days, there have been periods, sometimes an entire day, sometimes part of the day, where I lost my sense of taste and smell. And it was an absolute existential crisis for me. Okay, so here's the gift of COVID. It's helping me appreciate all my senses. You always think, well, man, if I went blind, how bad that would be, or if I went deaf. Let me tell you what, I love food, and I didn't realize just how much of my identity is wrapped up in my love and appreciation for food. And you're probably saying, Craig, we've seen your posts on Facebook. We know you love food, but I take for granted just how much, right? So these days I'm laying in bed and I don't have any sense of smell or taste. I've got these doomsday visions of, once I'm healthy again and we go out to eat and we're at some place like Olive Garden or something, and everybody's sitting around the table and they're ordering all this food, and I'll just have a water. I'll just have some bread, right? What's the point? I can't taste it anymore. And man, it socked it to me. But that's a gift from COVID, right? It's helping me appreciate all my senses. Psalm 104, 14 and 15 says, you, talking about God, caused the grass to grow, the livestock, the plants for man to cultivate, that he may bring forth food from the earth. Verse 15, and wine to gladden the heart of man, and oil to make his face shine, and bread to strengthen man's heart. That's Psalm 104, 14 and 15. Food is a gift from God. I have always felt that way. But being sick with COVID, it just helped me appreciate. In fact, I've gotten up in the mornings, I made a cup of coffee, and it just didn't taste like anything, and I love coffee. So I'm thankful that COVID has reawakened within me an appreciation for the senses that God has given me. And myself being sick, I know I have prayed more being sick, prayed for my health, my family's health. And I know that there are a lot of people that are praying for me. And more prayer is always a good thing. Let me wrap up with this, friends. I'm not saying that COVID, the death and the devastation and the pain of it is a good thing. And I know saying the gift of COVID sounds wrong at so many levels. Yet here's what I want to say. Anything that can help us be more appreciative, more realistic and honest about ourselves personally, right? Where we take personal reflection seriously, take stock of ourselves. Something that can help us become more humble as people and as a society. Something that can help us reflect on our need to be healthier and to take the gift of life more serious, right? We can be realistic and honest about ourselves personally. Something that causes us all to want to live better lives and to depend on God more. Well, I personally classify that as a gift. Appreciate your time. Thank you for spending this time together. And I hope the scriptures that we looked at and the thoughts I shared were a blessing for you. God bless. Have a great week.